West Wing Week. Welcome to the West Wing Week, your guide to everything that's happening at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. But first, a brief message from the Director of the White House Office of Energy and Climate Change Policy, Carol Browner.
Stay informed on the federal response to the BP oil spill in the Gulf. Visit whitehouse.gov and learn more about the administration's actions to contain the spill and control the damage, as well as assist those in the affected areas.
This week, May 28th to June 3rd, or More All. On Friday, May 28th, President Obama made his second trip to the Louisiana Gulf Coast to help facilitate the federal response to BP's oil spill. He was met by Incident Commander Thad Allen, as well as Lafourche Parish President Charlotte Randolph. They went to Fourchon Beach to inspect efforts to contain this tragic accident, as well as see some of the impact the spill is already having on the area.
The old boom was picked up yesterday.
The old boom was picked up yesterday, but this will just soak up the oil as it comes up. And if you guys want to get a little bit closer and get dirty, you can see. You might want to stop right around here. You can see these little balls. These are the tar balls that they're talking about.
The president then went to the U.S. Coast Guard station at Grand Isle to be briefed on the latest conditions on the ground.
First of all, this is the current perimeter of the spill.
Also attending the meeting were some local officials, including parish presidents, members of Louisiana's congressional delegation, and the governors of Louisiana, Alabama, and Florida.
There are issues that need to be worked out, and they are worked out. Because the one thing I'm absolutely sure of is, regardless of your politics and whether you're Republican or Democrat, there are a lot of desperate people down here whose livelihoods are dependent on us operating effectively.
The president then made a statement to the press waiting outside the station.
I give the people of this community and the entire Gulf my word that we're going to hold ourselves accountable to do whatever it takes for as long as it takes to stop this catastrophe, to defend our natural resources, to repair the damage, and to keep this region on its feet.
On Monday, May 31st, President Obama visited Abraham Lincoln National Cemetery outside Chicago to commemorate Memorial Day, where he laid a wreath in honor of the fallen. But soon after, the weather turned.
A little bit concerned about lightning. This may not be safe.
He continued his remarks with American servicemen and women at Andrews Air Force Base in Maryland.
At its core, the nobility and the majesty of Memorial Day can be found in the story of ordinary Americans who become extraordinary for the most simple of reasons. They love their country so deeply, so profoundly, that they were willing to give their lives to keep it safe and free.
That morning, the vice president went to Arlington National Cemetery to lay a wreath at the tomb of the unknown soldier. He later made remarks.
Today is a day in which sorrow mixes with incredible pride. We mourn those we've lost, and we hold fast to their memories. And we take pride, great pride, in the lives they lived and the service they provided, and the nation they created, saved, and strengthened.
On Tuesday, June 1st, the president met with BP Oil Spill Commission co-chairs, former Senator Bob Graham of Florida and former EPA Administrator Bill Riley, to examine the root causes of the unprecedented disaster caused by the explosion of a BP oil rig.
If the laws on our books are insufficient to prevent such a spill, the laws must change. If oversight was inadequate to enforce these laws, oversight has to be reformed.
Later that day, the president met with Peruvian President Garcia, discussing ways to create jobs and prosperity in both our nations, as well as tackle larger international issues, such as climate change and nuclear proliferation.
That's the kind of relationship that the president and I have established personally. It's the kind of relationship that our countries have been able to establish over the years, and it's a relationship that I expect will continue to grow and develop in the years to come.
On Wednesday, June 2nd, the president was visited by General Raymond Odierno, commander of the U.S. forces in Iraq, who had just flown in from Baghdad. They discussed Iraqi security and political issues as the U.S. prepares to end its combat mission in Iraq by the end of August. That afternoon, President Obama traveled to Carnegie Mellon University in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, where he spoke about the current state of the economy and where we need to go from here.
As we emerge from this recession, we can't afford to return to the pre-crisis status quo. We can't go back to an economy that was too dependent on bubbles and debt and financial speculation. We can't accept economic growth that leaves the middle class owing more and making less.
Back at the White House, Sir Paul McCartney was being honored with the Gershwin Prize, an award given by the Library of Congress for lifetime contributions to popular music.
Wow. No time for a warm-up.
By its very definition, popular music is fleeting. Rarely is it composed with an eye toward standing the test of time. Rare still does it actually achieve that distinction. And that's what makes Paul's career so legendary.
Sir Paul even sang a song for On Thursday, June 3rd, President Obama welcomed 2009 National Spelling Bee champ Kavya Shiva Shankar of Olathe, Kansas to the Oval Office.
Come on in. Well, we're very proud of you. Go through how many competitions to end up being the national champion?
Well, that year it was my school bee, my class bee, my school bee, then my regionals, and then it was a national competition.
Whew.
Yeah.
That's a lot of work.
Yeah.
Her nearest competitor stumbled on the word mecenas, which of course means a generous patron, especially of literature or art. The president then went to Foggy Bottom, home of the U.S. State Department, to join Secretary of State Hillary Clinton at a reception for the U.S.-India Strategic Dialogue. These talks build on the foundations laid down during India's state visit last fall on a myriad of key issues.
The relationship between the United States and India is fundamentally unique because, as our strategy explains, we share common interests, but we also share common values. As the world's two largest democracies and as countries that are rich in diversity with deep and close connections among our people.
To find out more information on any of these topics or to see complete videos of these events, go to whitehouse.gov. And thanks again for checking out your West Wing Week.
Too funny.